Okay, so you want to own a drone company. You've seen the videos. A tiny machine, hovering silently, filming a wedding, spraying a field, chasing a wildfire from above. No pilot, no cockpit, just four spinning blades and a camera that sees everything. You think about the math. Everyone wants one now. Farmers, filmmakers, police departments, armies. The sky is basically empty real estate, and you're about to fill it. Here's where most people stop thinking. And here's exactly where this gets strange. Because the drone company you're picturing, the one where you design a slick little flying camera and sell it to the world, is not the business that actually exists in 2026. The real business is a geopolitical minefield. And the biggest twist? You're not really competing on engineering. You're competing against a country. Let's start with the size of the prize. Depending on who's counting, the global drone market sits somewhere between $63 billion and $100 billion in 2026. That range isn't a mistake. It depends on what you include. Hardware alone is worth around $11 billion. Add software, services, defense contracts, and the number jumps past $96 billion. Services now make up nearly 80% of the civil drone market. The hardware, the actual flying object you picture in your head, is barely 17%. You haven't sold a single drone yet. And already the business isn't what you thought it was. Now here's the part that changes everything. One single company controls this entire market. DJI, a Chinese manufacturer holding somewhere between 70 and 90% of the global drone market, depending on the segment. In consumer camera drones specifically, DJI's share tips past 90%. In U.S. public safety departments, it's over 90% too. This company has held roughly the same dominant position since 2018. Not by luck, by system design. Sit with that number for a second. 9 out of 10 drones flying over wildfires, crime scenes, and construction sites, made by one company, in one country. So why doesn't someone just outbuild them? Because DJI isn't winning on marketing. It's winning on price. A capable camera drone from DJI starts around $299. A comparable American-made drone starts closer to $1,000, sometimes $2,000. Same category, triple the cost. And that gap isn't an accident either. It's the entire Chinese drone supply chain, motors, batteries, sensors, chips, all manufactured a few factories apart from each other, all optimized for volume nobody else can match. You wanted to build a better drone. Turns out you needed to build a better country's manufacturing base first. Now here's your first real pattern interrupt. Because in December 2025, the ground shifted under the entire industry. The FCC added DJI, along with other foreign drone makers, to its covered list. New DJI models can no longer get approval to enter the United States. Not a full ban. Drones already sold keep flying. But the pipeline for anything new cut off. The move came after a mandated national security review under the 2025 Defense Authorization Act. The stated goal, American airspace sovereignty. The real effect, an entire industry got reshuffled overnight. Analysts project $1.5 billion in lost U.S. drone sales in 2026 alone, just from this single decision. You'd think American drone makers would be celebrating. And in some rooms, they are. Because this is the opening they've waited a decade for. Skydio, the closest thing America has to a DJI competitor, just landed the largest single-vendor drone order in U.S. military history. Nearly 3,000 units. $52 million. Roughly $17,300 per drone. Let that number breathe next to DJI's $299 starting price. This isn't the same product tier, sure, but it tells you something deeper about this business. The price isn't set by what a drone costs to build. It's set by who's allowed to sell it. Skydio has shipped over 60,000 units total and carries a $4.4 billion valuation. Not because it outcompeted DJI on specs, because it became the only politically acceptable option left standing. That's the twist nobody puts in the pitch deck. In this industry, your biggest growth driver isn't your product roadmap. It's an executive order. But don't get too comfortable in that story either. Because the exemptions keep shifting under everyone's feet. Weeks after the ban, the FCC carved out exceptions for drones on the Pentagon's approved parts list and for companies meeting a Buy American standard. Parrot, AeroVironment, a handful of others. Suddenly some foreign-linked drones are back in, some aren't, and nobody in the industry can plan more than a few months ahead. You wanted a stable business. What you got is a business that changes its own rules every quarter, based on decisions made in rooms you'll never sit in. Now, let's say you skip consumer drones entirely. Let's say you go where the real money screams the loudest. Defense. Here's a number that should stop you cold. A basic FPV attack drone costs somewhere between $400 and $2,000 to build. That same $500 drone can destroy a tank worth $2 million. A 4,000 to 1 exchange rate, in the attacker's favor. Ukraine alone built an estimated 4 million drones in 2025. Some frontline units now receive 5 to 7 FPV drones per soldier per day. This is not a hobby industry anymore. This is industrial scale, disposable warfare, and the entire pricing logic is inverted. In this corner of the drone business, expensive doesn't mean better. Expensive means you're already losing the cost war. And Dural learned this the hard way, sort of on purpose. They built the Bolt M, a $20,000 to $30,000 attack drone, deliberately more expensive than the $500 disposable FPVs flooding the battlefield. Their bet: one smarter drone replaces 10 dumb ones. Whether that bet pays off is still being decided, in real time, on an actual battlefield. Meanwhile, Russia churns out Shahid-style drones for $35,000 to $60,000 each, aimed at targets worth millions. And Ukrainian manufacturer Wild Hornets builds interceptor drones for around $2,100 apiece, at a pace of 10,000 units a month. You thought you were entering the drone industry. You actually just walked into an arms race, where your margin depends on how fast you can make something cheap enough to be thrown away. So which drone company do you actually want to own? The consumer hardware play, where you're fighting a Chinese giant that makes drones cheaper than most people's phone bills. The American defense adjacent play, where your growth depends entirely on which country's flag is on the FCC's covered list this month. Or the battlefield play, where success means building something disposable, fast, and just expensive enough to matter, but never expensive enough to lose money on when it explodes on its first flight. Here's what nobody tells you at the start. All three of these businesses live inside the same building, and none of them are really about the drone. Go back to that $17,300 Skydio order for a second. Compare it to DJI's $299 entry drone. That gap, more than 50 times the price, isn't a technology gap. Both drones fly. Both take pictures. Both can be jammed, crashed, and replaced. The gap is trust. Or more precisely, the gap is whose government trusts whose supply chain. That's the real product being sold in this industry. Not altitude. Not camera resolution. Not flight time. Trust, wrapped in a plastic shell with propellers on it. And trust, unlike a drone, can't be manufactured on a factory floor. It gets decided by regulators, by defense ministries, by trade wars nobody in your product meetings can control. You can build the best drone in the world tomorrow morning. If your supply chain runs through the wrong country, it won't matter. If it runs through the right one, at the right political moment, mediocre engineering can turn into a $4.4 billion valuation almost overnight. So here's the real twist waiting at the end of this story. Owning a drone company was never about owning the sky. It was about picking a side in a fight over who controls the parts, the borders, and the battlefields those tiny machines fly over. The propellers spin the same way no matter who built them. The price tag, the market access, the entire business model, that's decided somewhere else entirely. You wanted to build a flying camera. What you actually bought into is a geopolitical bet with wings.